The unseen dangers of the Appalachian Trail. Every year, millions of people feel the pull of the Appalachian Trail. It's a footpath of breathtaking beauty, stretching just under 2,200 miles from the mountains of Georgia to the remote peaks of Maine. For so many, it's a symbol of escape, adventure, and personal pilgrimage. They come looking for a challenge, for solitude, and for a real connection with nature. They come to walk away from the noise and listen to the whisper of the woods. But what happens when that whisper becomes a scream that no one can hear? For some, the adventure of a lifetime turns into a desperate, terrifying fight for survival. Because beneath the serene canopy and behind the postcard-perfect views, the Appalachian Trail hides some unsettling secrets and real-life nightmares. We're going to explore those stories, the cases where the trail's tranquil beauty became the backdrop for disappearance, violence, and the agonizing struggle against the indifferent power of the wild. These stories are proof that sometimes the most beautiful places hide the most unseen dangers. Section 1. The allure and the reality. To understand the darkness, you first have to appreciate the light. The Appalachian Trail, or the AT, is more than just a path. For the thousands of through hikers who try to walk its entire length in one go, it's a world of its own. It has its own culture, its own language, its own legends. You'll hear about trail magic, when total strangers leave food and water for hikers, and trail angels, who might offer a ride, a hot meal, or a place to stay. The community is famously close-knit, a moving caravan of kindred spirits all marching to the same beat. People hear these stories. They see the incredible photos of sunrises over misty valleys, and they get seduced by the romance of it all. The trail promises self-discovery and freedom. But that romantic image can obscure a much harsher reality. It isn't a city park, it's a genuine wilderness. And the dangers aren't just hypothetical. They are a constant, lurking presence. The most common threats aren't the sensational ones that make the news. They're insidious and almost boring. You'd be surprised how many hikes are cut short by something as simple as acute diarrhea, often from drinking improperly treated water. Blisters, rashes, and debilitating joint pain are practically rites of passage that can end a journey just as surely as any big disaster. Hypothermia is a constant threat, able to strike on a cool summer evening if you get caught in the rain. And the weather can turn on a dime, from a calm, sunny afternoon to a violent thunderstorm that sends trees crashing down. And then there's the wildlife. While black bear attacks are incredibly rare, seeing them isn't. A more pressing danger is the nearly invisible threat of deer ticks, which carry Lyme disease, an illness with symptoms that can cruelly mimic the normal aches and pains of a long-distance hike. Statistically, you are safer on the Appalachian Trail than you are in most American cities. The odds of becoming a victim of a violent crime are extremely low. Since 1974, there have only been about a dozen murders recorded along its entire length. But what good are statistics when you're alone, miles from the nearest road, and the sun is starting to set? The real danger of the AT isn't just about physical hazards. It's about isolation. It's about how fast things can go wrong, and how terrifyingly alone you can be when they do. Help isn't a 911 call away. Sometimes, help is days away. And sometimes, it never comes at all. This brutal reality is tragically illustrated by the story of a woman who stepped off the trail for just a moment and vanished from the world. Section 2. Case Study 1. The agonizing weight of Geraldine Largay. Geraldine "Jerry" Largay was no rookie. At 66, the retired Air Force nurse from Tennessee was an experienced hiker who had spent years planning her dream trip, hiking the Appalachian Trail. Her friends described her as someone who just radiated joy. That was her bucket list challenge, and she took it on with meticulous planning and a steady, determined spirit. Her trail name was Inchworm, a nod to her slow but persistent pace. By the summer of 2013, Jerry had hiked more than 1,000 miles. She started with a friend, but a family emergency had forced her companion to leave. Undeterred, Jerry pushed on alone, with her husband, George, meeting her at road crossings with supplies and encouragement. On the morning of July 22, 2013, Jerry was in a particularly remote and rugged section of trail in western Maine. This part of the Add is notorious for its dense forests and tough terrain. She was supposed to meet George the next day at the Route 27 crossing. That morning, someone snapped a photo of her, smiling, a woman who was exactly where she wanted to be. But she never made it to Route 27. When she didn't show up, a worried George reported her missing on July 24th. What happened was a simple, terrifyingly common mistake. At some point on July 22nd, Jerry stepped off the trail for a little privacy to use the bathroom. When she tried to go back, she got turned around. The woods here are a thick, unforgiving tangle. In just a few minutes, the clearly marked path can disappear, leaving you in a sea of green. Jerry was lost. Panic has a way of short-circuiting logic. Instead of staying put, which is what lost hikers are always advised to do, she tried to find her way back. She also tried to climb to higher ground, hoping for a cell signal. And we know all this because of the heartbreaking record she left on her phone and in a small notebook. Her first text to her husband, sent that afternoon, read, "In some trouble. Got off trail to go to BR, now lost. Can you call AMC to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road." The message never sent. No signal. The next day, she tried again, lost since yesterday. Off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police for what to do, please. That one failed to send, too. Over the next several days, she tried to text her husband nearly a dozen times. Each attempt was a desperate, silent plea for help that just evaporated into the air. Meanwhile, one of the largest search operations in Maine's history was underway. Over 130 people, with dogs, horses, and aircraft, scoured the area. They searched for weeks, but the forest that had swallowed Jerry refused to give her up. The dense canopy made it impossible for planes to see anything on the ground. Tragically, it was later revealed that rescuers had come within 100 yards of her location multiple times, but they never saw her. Jerry didn't just give up. She was a survivor. Realizing she was lost and that help wasn't coming right away, she set up her tent in a small clearing. She rationed her food. She waited, and she wrote. On a page torn from her journal, she chronicled her slow, agonizing ordeal. Days turned into weeks. She survived for at least 26 days. Can you imagine the psychological torment? Alone, her food running out, hearing the distant sound of search planes, but being totally unable to signal them. She was a ghost in her own life, present but unseen. Her final journal entry is a testament to her grace under the most horrific circumstances. Knowing her time was short, she wrote one last message. It was dated August 18, 2013, though she might have lost track of the days. It said, "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now. Please find it in your heart to mail the contents of this bag to one of them." For 2 years, Jerry's fate was a mystery. Some even suspected foul play. The search was eventually scaled back, leaving a painful question mark for her family. Then, in October 2015, more than 2 years after she vanished, a forester doing a survey stumbled upon a collapsed tent. It was Jerry's. Her remains were inside, along with her journal and cell phone. The medical examiner determined she had died from exposure and starvation. And the most devastating detail of all, her final campsite was only about 3,000 feet, a little over half a mile, from the Appalachian Trail. She was so close. But in the dense Maine wilderness, half a mile can be an impassable chasm. To make things even more tragic, her camp was on land owned by the U.S. Navy for survival training. an area where search parties weren't allowed to go. Jerry Largay's story is a profound and tragic lesson. She wasn't killed by a bear, a snake, or a stranger. She died because of a simple, momentary loss of direction. Her death highlights the trail's most potent, unseen danger, the unforgiving nature of the wilderness itself. But while the wild can be an indifferent adversary, the most chilling stories are the ones that involve a danger far more calculated: the human predator. Section 3. Case Study 2. The Ghost of Dismal Creek. For most of its length, the Appalachian Trail is a sanctuary. But near a place called Dismal Creek in southwestern Virginia, the trail holds a memory of pure evil. It's a story that spans decades, a chilling tale of a predator who used the trail's trusting culture as his hunting ground, a man who became the At's most notorious bogeyman, Randall Lee Smith. In May of 1981, Robert Mountford Jr. and Laura Susan Ramsey, two 27-year-old social workers, were hiking the trail to raise money for troubled youth. They were the classic at hikers: open, friendly, and trusting. In the woods of Giles County, Virginia, they met a local man who seemed friendly enough. His name was Randall Lee Smith. Smith was a strange, withdrawn man in his late 20s. He knew the mountains and often chatted with hikers, acting like a helpful local. He befriended Robert and Susan, and they ended up together at the Wapiti shelter. What happened next is the stuff of campfire nightmares. In the dark of the woods, Smith turned on them. He shot Robert in the head. Susan Ramsey fought for her life, but she was brutally stabbed and bludgeoned. After the horrific crime, Smith tried to cover his tracks. He buried their bodies and then went back along the trail, meticulously erasing their names from the shelter logbooks, trying to wipe their very existence from the trail's memory. When the couple was reported missing, an investigation began. The bodies were soon found, and police started asking about a strange local man named Randall Lee Smith. A crucial piece of evidence was found in Susan Ramsey's backpack, a paperback book with a bloody fingerprint that belonged to neither victim. In 1981, forensic tech was still developing, but they got a match. The print belonged to Randall Lee Smith. Faced with the evidence, Smith was arrested. The hiking community was stunned. The motive was unclear. The violence was senseless. The prosecutor, worried the case was circumstantial, offered a plea bargain. In a move that would spark outrage for decades, Randall Lee Smith pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to just 30 years in prison, with the terms to be served concurrently. Hikers protested. Smith was the first person convicted of murdering a hiker on the At who would ever have a chance to walk free. And in 1996, after serving only 15 years, he did. Randall Lee Smith was released on parole and returned to his mother's house in Pearisburg, Virginia, not far from the trail he had stained with blood. He became a ghost story, a name whispered at shelters and campfires. Through hikers in Virginia would talk about the killer who lived just beyond the trees. Then, the nightmare returned. On May 6, 2008, 2 fishermen, Scott Johnston and Sean Farmer, were camping near Dismal Creek, less than 2 miles from the site of the 1981 murders. They met a friendly stranger who called himself Ricky Williams and shared their dinner with him. Without warning, the man pulled out a gun and opened fire. He shot both men multiple times. Miraculously, both survived. As the attacker reloaded, Sean Farmer, though badly wounded, managed to get to his truck and drive. As he sped down the dark road, he saw a figure emerge from the woods. It was Scott, also escaped, holding his hand to his bleeding neck. They made it to a house and called for help. When police showed Sean Farmer a photo of their attacker, the chilling truth came out. Ricky Williams was Randall Lee Smith. He had returned to his old hunting ground. Smith fled in Scott's truck, but crashed it. He was arrested, but the story ends with one last, bizarre twist. 4 days later, Randall Lee Smith was found unconscious in his cell and died from injuries sustained in the crash. The monster of Dismal Creek was gone, but the legacy of his violence haunts the trail to this day. His case is a horrifying reminder that while the wilderness is dangerous, the greatest threat can sometimes be the person smiling at you across a campfire. The stories we're sharing aren't meant to scare you away from the wilderness. They're meant to foster a deep respect for it and an awareness of the very real dangers that exist. If you find these deep dives into the trail's darker history compelling, subscribing to the channel is the best way to help us continue to research and share these important stories. Now, let's turn from the horror of a known killer to the unsettling quiet of a complete and total mystery. Section 4. Case Study 3. The Accidental Vanishing. Not all of the trail's dangers are as dramatic as a killer in the woods or a 26-day survival ordeal. Sometimes, the danger is quiet, sudden, and utterly baffling. It's the simple, brutal reality of gravity and rock, and how one misstep can lead to an irreversible tragedy. And that seems to be what happened to Michael Kaiser. In October 2019, 56-year-old Michael Kaiser set out for what was supposed to be a short, 2-day hike on the Att. Kaiser was no casual walker. He was an experienced hiker described as having no known medical or psychological issues. He was a father of 4, and this was something he loved to do. He entered the trail in Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, on Friday, October 11th. The next day, he was in touch with his brother, sending him photos from a rocky overlook called Bear Rocks, a spot famous for its rugged terrain and amazing views. Then, he went silent. At first, his family wasn't overly worried. A dead cell battery or spotty service is common on the trail. But by Tuesday, October 15th, with still no word, concern grew into alarm, and his brother reported him missing. The search began right away. Authorities quickly found his F-150 truck parked near the trailhead, confirming he was still out there somewhere. But there was no sign of Michael. The search focused on the rugged terrain around Bear Rocks and another landmark called Bake Oven Knob. This section of the Att in Pennsylvania is so notoriously rocky that thru hikers have nicknamed the state Rocksylvania. It's a landscape of jagged rock fields and steep climbs that demands your constant attention. The search didn't last long. The very next day, searchers made a grim discovery. Michael Kaiser's body was found at the bottom of a 30-foot embankment near Bear Rocks. Unlike Jerry Largay's slow battle with the elements or the clear violence against Randall Lee Smith's victims, Michael Kaiser's death was sudden and, according to authorities, accidental. There was no foul play. Investigators concluded he either had a medical emergency or, more likely, simply lost his footing on the treacherous rocks. One moment, he was an experienced hiker taking photos of a beautiful view. The next, he was gone. His death is a stark reminder of one of the trail's most fundamental dangers, a fall. It sounds simple, almost mundane. But on a remote, rocky ledge, a fall can be just as fatal as any predator. A twisted ankle can leave you stranded. A head injury can incapacitate you. And a 30-foot fall offers very little chance of survival. What makes stories like his so unsettling is how easily they could happen. He did everything right. He was experienced. He told someone his plan. He was on a short, manageable trip. But the trail is unforgiving. A loose rock, a slippery patch of moss, a moment of distraction, that's all it takes. His story shows that the most common unseen danger isn't something that stalks you, but something that's always right under your feet. The terrain itself is a powerful and impartial force. Section 5. Modern Dangers and Staying Safe. The Appalachian Trail today isn't the same one from these stories. While the timeless dangers of weather, terrain, and the rare human threat are still there, new challenges have emerged, and our ability to stay safe has evolved. One of the biggest new threats is climate change. It's not some abstract concept on the trail. It's a real and growing danger. Rising temperatures are leading to more droughts, making water sources less reliable. At the same time, We're seeing more intense storms that increase the risk of flash floods and create more widowmakers, fallen trees and branches that can be deadly. However, just as dangers have evolved, so has safety technology. Jerry Largay's tragic story shows the fatal flaw of relying only on a cell phone. Today, hikers have access to personal locator beacons, PLBs, and satellite messengers. Devices like a Garmin InReach or a Spot tracker let you send messages or, most importantly, trigger an SOS that sends your exact GPS coordinates to emergency services, even with no cell reception. If Jerry Largay had been carrying one of these, her story almost certainly would have had a different ending. But technology isn't a magic bullet. The most critical safety tool is still knowledge and preparation. The core rules of trail safety haven't changed. First, tell someone your plan. Give a detailed itinerary to family or friends, including your route and timeline. Agree on when you'll check in. Second, respect the invisible dangers of illness. Always treat your water, whether with a filter or tablets. Be vigilant about hygiene to prevent illnesses like norovirus from spreading. Third, be tick-aware. Lyme disease is a serious threat on the At. Treat your clothes with permethrin, use repellent, and do a full-body tick check every single night. Finally, listen to your gut. The At community is overwhelmingly kind, but as the Randall Lee Smith story proves, evil can find its way anywhere. If someone makes you uncomfortable, get away from them. Camp somewhere else. Don't be afraid to trust a bad feeling. Your intuition is one of your most powerful survival tools. The trail demands respect. It's not a playground. It's a living wilderness that operates on its own terms. Being prepared, staying aware, and carrying the right gear aren't just suggestions. They are essential for ensuring your journey on the Appalachian Trail remains the adventure of a lifetime, not the end of one. The Appalachian Trail is a place of deep contrasts. It's a place of serene beauty and raw, untamed danger. It's a path to solitude that somehow builds an incredible community. It promises self-discovery, yet it has also been the final resting place for some who sought its embrace. The stories of Geraldine Largay, Robert Mountford, Laura Ramsey, and Michael Kaiser are more than just cautionary tales. They are deeply human tragedies. Jerry Largay's journal speaks to the quiet dignity of a person facing their end, whose main concern was her family's peace of mind. The murders at Dismal Creek remind us that darkness can intrude on even the most peaceful places. And Michael Kaiser's death is a humbling reminder that on the trail, one wrong step can be your last. Millions of people hike the At every year, and the vast majority come home with nothing more than sore feet and a lifetime of memories. The trail is not defined by its tragedies, but to ignore them, to pretend the darkness isn't there, is to disrespect the power of the wilderness and the memory of those who were lost to it. These stories compel us to be more prepared, more aware, and more humble. They remind us that to truly appreciate the light, we have to acknowledge the shadows. And they leave us with a lingering, somber truth that in the heart of America's great wilderness, the line between a dream hike and a fight for survival can be as thin and as easy to lose as the trail itself.